Hello guys and welcome back to TechWolf. In this video we are going to do a CompTIA Tech Plus practice test for the latest CompTIA Tech Plus exam, guys. But if you are interested in more practice tests and if you are interested doing them yourself, one source is to visit my Udemy course. I will leave a link in description where you can do these practice tests for yourself, or you can visit Skilltestpro where you can also get 3 free practice tests here and you can do them as well here. Like I'm mentioning, guys, do as many as you can these practice tests before your real exam, as only by doing them in real life, by practicing, by doing them, you will get used to real exam. Or you can watch more videos if you go to my TechWolf YouTube channel homepage, just by clicking on TechWolf under this video, and here you have a full playlist on different practice tests. Like now I'm creating for CompTIA. As you can see, here is Tech Plus, A+, Core 1, Core 2, Network, Security, and I will be creating many more for Microsoft and Cisco practice tests as well. So no further ado, guys, let's get into it. And first question is, which of the following is an advantage of using fiber optic cables over copper cables? And here you should know that main advantage in general of cables is in their speed, how fast and how far they can transfer. So answer options are lower cost, better resistance to electromagnetic interference, easier to install, less sensitive to weather conditions, or can transmit at lower speeds, which would be the correct answer here. And here the correct answer is better resistance to electromagnetic interference, as fiber optic cables use light signals, making them immune to electromagnetic interference, unlike copper cables that are susceptible to signal degradation. So here you simply should know that fiber optic cables, they don't have any electromagnetic interference at all because they use light signals, where copper cables like CAT, Cat5, Cat6, Cat7, Cat8 cables or category cables, they can be interferenced or affected by electromagnetic interference. That's what the main thing what you should know about this subject. What is the common use for virtual machine or VM? Why would you use a virtual machine? And here the answer options are to emulate a secondary hard drive, to enhance network speed, to control power management settings, to isolate applications for testing and development, or to replace physical hardware. So here the correct answer would be to isolate applications for testing and development. And as you know, guys, there are two types of virtual machines. One type of virtual machine is when you are installing it on hardware itself of the computer system, but another type of virtual machines are those which you are installing in operating systems, like on Windows, for example, operating system, but you are not installing them on hardware itself. So virtual machines allow users to run multiple operating systems or applications in isolated environments for testing and development without affecting the primary system. And if you are interested in more subjects about virtual machines, I also have videos about virtual machines on my channel. Just go to the channel's homepage. I have their full courses on how to use them, how to install, how to set up different operating systems. You can do that also by watching those videos and trying it out for yourself. Next question, what is the purpose of multi-factor authentication? So here you should know what is multi-factor authentication. So in short, what multi-factor authentication is, it is like 2 or more types of authentication. Here you should understand that multi-factor authentication can be hidden in phrases like what you know, who you are, for example, or what you have. What you know, that could be your password, for example, that could be your username. That is one type of authentication, but another type of authentication would be like, for example, who you are. That could be your fingerprint, or for example your eye, if you are authenticating to the device yourself by your eye, or what you have. That could be, for example, your card, some card which you are adding to the door, or whenever you are adding to the sensor of the door to enter the building, for example. So here you have what you know, that could be password or username or any code. Who you are, that is pretty much you, and what you have, those could be some other, for example, key, fobs and cards and many other things. And multi-factor simply means that you have more than one of these authentication types available. That's why we would have multi-factor authentication. So what is the purpose of multi-factor authentication? To increase the size of passwords, to allow access without a password, to improve network security by requiring multiple forms of verification, to bypass firewalls, or to store encrypted data or data. And here the correct answer is to improve network security by requiring multiple forms of verification, which I just mentioned to you. One could be, for example, knowing a password or some code. That could be a single authentication, but if you would have another type of authentication, for example your eye scan or your fingerprint, then that would make up already multi-factor authentication. So remember that in multi-factor authentication you need to have more than one type of authentication, whether it is something you know, something you are, or something you have. And actually I didn't press on this answer, so you make sure that this is correct. As you see, multi-factor authentication adds an extra layer of security by requiring more than one method of authentication. As you see, password plus SMS code. Which type of cable is used to connect a computer to a wired network? So, which type of cable is used to connect a computer to wired network? So here the keywords are pretty much that you are connecting a computer, and the keyword is wired network. HDMI, USB, Ethernet, Thunderbolt, or VGA. And when we are talking about computers, this is always and 100% Ethernet cable, and we use Ethernet cables, which are most common type, or mostly or pretty much all the time used. Those are CAT cables. You would never really connect a computer to a network, for example, by using a fiber optic cable, because they are not very common use. You would use fiber optic cables for some large distances when connecting different networks together, or for example if there is interference but you would connect, for example, routers or switches, there you could use fiber optic cables. But if you are connecting a computer, that is all the time Ethernet cable, and they use RJ45 connectors, as Ethernet cables are used to wired network connections, providing reliable and fast data transfers between devices on a local network. So your local network is your home network, or for example in companies that would be the company networks inside, which could be also separated in more than one network so they don't interfere, and they secure data to each network. For example, in your company there could be financial department, that could be one local area network, and there could be, for example, customer support department, which could have another local area network, and in this one company these networks would be separated, but they would all use Ethernet cables in general, and those would be CAT category cables. What is the common symptom of overheating in a computer? Increased battery life, unusual system crashes and sudden shutdowns, slower Wi-Fi speed, faster boot time, or decreased RAM usage. So what is the common symptom of overheating in a computer? So if your computer is overheating, what would be the common symptom for this? And The correct answer here is unusual system crashes and sudden shutdowns. As computers, they have built in this protection system. When they are overheating, they are simply shutting down. So this is to protect the computer itself. So unusual system crashes and sudden shutdowns, as overheating can cause a computer to shut down unexpectedly or crash to protect its components from damage. As like I mentioned, this is built into the computers itself to shut down, to protect its components from damage, so those components don't get damaged, like CPUs and other computer components. What is the function of the CPU in a computer? So here you should know what is CPU, and CPU stands for Central Processing Unit, and this is also a processor in your computer to process and execute instructions, to store data and files, to manage power usage, to provide networking capabilities, or to display images on the screen. So what is the purpose of CPU? And when it comes to CPU, or Central Processing Unit, or your processor of your computer, it always is used to process and execute instructions, as that's the main purpose of the CPU in any computer at all. The stronger or faster is your CPU, the faster and the more different instructions your computer can process at the same time. So processing is in executing instructions. The CPU, or Central Processing Unit, is the brain of the computer, responsible for executing instructions from programs and managing operations. Which of the following is an example of an input device? So, which one of these are input devices? There are input and output devices, that's what you should know. And you should be able to identify which are input devices, and you should be able to identify which are output devices. This is also one of the requirements for this CompTIA Tech Plus exam, guys. Monitor, printer, keyboard, speaker, or headphones. So which one is the input device here? And by logically, keyboard is the input device, as you are using keyboard to put some information or insert some information into the computer, where monitor would be the output device, printer would also be an output device, speaker would be an output device, and headphones also output, because they are sending signal out rather than taking it in. Next question, what is the purpose of a UPS, uninterruptible power supply? So here you should know in computer systems why we use uninterruptible power supply. To protect devices from power surges, to store data in the event of power failure, to provide backup power during power outages, to enhance Wi-Fi signals, or to monitor network traffic. And here the correct answer is to provide backup power during power outages. If, for example, if electricity in a building goes out, then UPS, or uninterruptible power supply, switches in and takes over and still provides a power to your computer. So this is related to data loss, so you don't lose, or company doesn't lose data or have enough time to back up all data which is needed until the power is restored. So provide backup power during power outages. A UPS provides temporary battery power to devices during power outages, preventing data loss and allowing the user to safely shut down systems. What type of software is used to control a computer's hardware and allow it to run applications? So, what type of software? So here we are reading a question. So we are looking for software is used to control a computer's hardware and allow it to run applications. Firmware, utilities, device drivers, operating systems, or software as a service. or SAS, that could be. So what is the correct answer here? And here the correct answer is operating system. The operating system manages hardware resources, allows users to interact with the system, and provides a platform for running applications. Which of the following storage devices uses rotating magnetic disks to store data? And here we are thinking, what storage devices do we have? And here it is asking specifically about which of the following storage devices use the rotating magnetic disk. That's what is the keyword which you should look for here. Solid state drive, hard disk drive, USB flash drive, optical drive, or memory card. Which one of these would have rotating magnetic disks? And that's the same, that would be a device or hardware which would allow you to store data. And the correct answer here is hard disk drive, as hard disk drive or HDD uses rotating magnetic disks to read and write data, where solid state drives like SSDs use flash memory, and solid state drives doesn't have any disks in them. Pretty much solid state drive is a chip, similar as, for example, USB drive. It doesn't have any rotating or moving parts. What does the acronym BIOS stand for? So here you should know also what is BIOS, why you need BIOS for this exam. That is also what you should know. Basic Integrated Operating System, Binary Input-Output System, Basic Input-Output System, Booted Integrated Operating System, or Binary Interactive Operating System, which is the correct answer here. And the correct answer here is Basic Input-Output System, as the BIOS is a firmware stored on the motherboard, which is responsible for booting the computer and initializing hardware before the operating system loads. And here the main thing, like in this answer, what you should know about BIOS is that it starts even before your operating system, before anything else. Whenever you switch on your computer or whenever you are powering on your computer, and what BIOS does, it checks or initializes or checks all hardware. Like for example, if you have a RAM, whether that RAM is working, whether that RAM is properly seated, do you have a hard disk drive or SSD drive, whether those drives are there, whether they are seated, whether they are connected. That's pretty much what BIOS does. It, when you power on computer, it checks whether there is all hardware, it is in place, it is operational, and if it's not, BIOS will return some errors on your screen, or you will get some errors on your screen if something will not be connected, or there will be, for example, disconnected hard drive, or there will be no hard drive at all. That's pretty much what BIOS will check on motherboard, which are components which are connected to that motherboard and whether they are operational. That's the main kind of thing what you should understand about the BIOS, and the main thing what BIOS is doing. It is not an operating system, but it is to do only with your hardware, and it comes with your motherboard. What is the main difference between RAM and ROM? So here you should know what is RAM and what is ROM. I will not be actually telling you explanation of these or interpretation of these shortcuts. RAM is used for permanent storage, ROM is temporary storage. RAM is faster than ROM, RAM is volatile and ROM is not non-volatile. ROM requires power to function, RAM does not. And RAM is only used in mobile devices. So, which one is the correct answer here? And here, the main thing which you can straight away identify is that RAM is volatile and ROM is non-volatile. And the difference between volatile and non-volatile memory is that, for example, volatile memory is getting stored only when there is a power, and non-volatile memory is there all the time. For example, your HDD or hard disk drives or SSDs. What type of memory those would be? So those would be non-volatile, because they don't depend on power supply. Where RAM is a volatile memory which is getting lost or erased or disappears altogether when the computer is being powered off. So here you also should be able to identify and understand the difference between volatile and non-volatile memory types. And here is the correct answer. RAM loses its contents when power is turned off, while ROM retains its data even when the power is off. Similar as, like I mentioned, with HDD or hard disk drive and SSD. It retains its data even when the power is turned off, where RAM doesn't retain data. It loses its contents or data or memory, everything, when power is turned off. Which of the following is the most common way to back up data? External hard drives, paper files, USB flash drives, cloud storage, or system restore. Which would be the correct answer here? And here the correct answer would be cloud storage, as cloud storage provides an easy and secure way to back up data by storing it on remote servers accessible via the internet. For example, now all companies move their data, pretty much all their data to and store their data in cloud storage, because it doesn't matter whether your system crashes or your servers crashes or your computers crashes, all data still will be backed up and automatically stored in cloud. Sorry guys. What is the purpose of an IP address or Internet Protocol address? What is its purpose? To uniquely identify a device on a network, to increase data transmission speed, to store network settings, to encrypt network traffic, or to assign passwords to network users. Which would be the correct answer here? And why would we need IP address? And here the correct answer is that we need IP address to uniquely identify devices on a network. So pretty much we have IP address, which is identifying device on a network, and IP addresses are used to identify devices on a network, ensuring data is sent to the correct destination. And once you will proceed, for example, to networking and further in IT, you will also know that there are private IPs and there are public IP addresses, and there could be similar IP addresses in local area networks, where on public networks those IP addresses are unique, and that's some information which you will understand when you will start learning networking and deeper into the IP addresses. Which of the following would be used to connect a computer to a wireless network? So what we need to connect our computers, our mobile devices, to wireless network. So which is that component in our devices which is responsible for it? Ethernet cable, Wi-Fi adapter, USB mouse, HDMI cable, or printer cable. And here, purely by logic, you can say that correct answer is Wi-Fi adapter, as Wi-Fi adapter allows a computer to connect to a wireless network, providing internet access without the need for a physical connection. What is the function of a DNS, domain name system? So also you should be able to identify, as if you still don't understand what is DNS, do a deeper research, but in general this is system. Actually, I will not be explaining you it now, as I will give you a correct answers because some of you might know answer. Protects against malware, manages system backups, compresses network traffic, transfers domain names into IP addresses, or encrypts network data. And here the correct answer is translates domain names into IP addresses, and vice versa around, guys. Not only domains into IP addresses, but also IP addresses into domain names. So it works both ways, as DNS servers convert human readable domains, like for example whatever would be the domain like Skilltestpro.com, like in this scenario. It also has an IP address, but for us as a humans it would be easier to remember Skilltestpro.com rather remembering some IP address, as imagine you would want to visit many websites like google.com, yahoo.com or any other website out there, and you would have to remember, instead of these names like skilltestpro.com, google.com and all other names, you would have to remember numbers which are their IP addresses. So it's easier for us to remember these names, and that's why humans, we invented DNS, where DNS is translating these IP addresses or numbers to readable names, and these names to numbers. That's why that's pretty much the only reason why we need these DNS servers. If we would be unique and we would be able to remember IP addresses, we would never ever create these DNS servers, as then we would simply remember IP addresses. And when you would want to visit a website, you would be entering its IP address rather this name, which is in this scenario skilltestpro.com or google.com or yahoo.com or any other, but all of them also have IP addresses. That's why we use DNS servers. Which of the following is a key feature of firewall? And like I'm always mentioning, and I'm returning back to this all the time, because I know that many people who are new to computers, they don't really understand what is firewall and what is antivirus software, as there are these two protection measures on our computers. One is firewall and another is antivirus software, which we are using. Some people think that it's the same thing, however they are not the same thing, as firewall is used to protect our networks. So it is protecting our network, incoming network and outgoing network, and we can on our computers regulate this by using firewalls, what traffic we want to allow in, what traffic we want to allow out, what ports that traffic should use when it is coming in through network, and what port it should use, for example, when it is leaving our computer system. That's where we would use firewall, and we protect our network by the firewall to allow some traffic or to disallow some traffic, where virus software is for applications already on our computers, for applications, for operating system, for protecting it already locally when that data which came from internet, from network, by using firewall, which is already in here. So if there some viruses got through into our computer, we have antivirus softwares which detect whether we have any malware on our applications or any malware on our operating system or anywhere else in our computer already. That's why we would use antivirus software. So firewall for network protection, antivirus software for our application and local computer, everything what is already when we are working in our computer. So that's just for those who don't really understand the difference between these two. So blocks and let's go again. Which of the following is a key feature of firewall? So blocks unauthorized access while allowing legitimate traffic, prevents hardware failures, increases internet speed, protects against electrical surges, or manages printer queues. And here the correct answer is blocks unauthorized access while allowing legitimate traffic. So we are talking about traffic, legitimate traffic in or out into the computer. So blocks unauthorized access while allowing legitimate traffic is the correct answer, as firewalls are designed to monitor and filter incoming and outgoing network traffic. That's what you should know straight away if you get a question about what is a firewall. So it controls or filters incoming and outgoing network traffic. Keyword here is network traffic, so traffic which comes in or leaves your particular device, system or computer. You can call it however you want, based on predetermined security rules. Like I mentioned, you can write different rules, what ports you can allow that traffic in or out, what traffic you want to allow in or out, and so on and so forth. You will get more understanding, like I mentioned, if you will be going into networking field. What does the acronym SSD stand for? Super speed disk, solid state drive, super storage device, solid state disk, system storage drive. I believe you would be able to answer this question straight away, as mentioned or explained this already a couple of times while doing this practice test. And here the correct answer is solid state drive. And the only difference between SSD, solid state drive, and HDD, which is hard disk drive, is that solid state drive is a chip and hard disk drive has a moving part, which is disk, and solid state drives are much more reliable than hard disk drives, and they are way faster than hard disk drives. However, solid state drives are more expensive than hard disk drives for data storage. However, now already in our time it is getting cheaper and cheaper. So explanation: an SSD is a type of a data storage device that uses flash memory. So SSD uses flash memory instead of mechanical components like in hard drives or HDDs, resulting in a faster data access. Which of these is not a type of RAID configuration? And here the keyword is not a type of RAID configuration, so you should also know for this exam RAID configurations like RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 5, RAID 10 and RAID 3. You should be able to answer this straight away, as these which you should know for this exam is RAID 0, RAID 1, RAID 5 and RAID 10. There's also RAID 6. However, we are not discussing it and CompTIA will not expect you to know anything about it, but RAID 3 is not, and here keyword, not a type of RAID configuration. So RAID 3 is not a common configuration. The more typical RAID levels are RAID 0, 1, 5 and 10, and these are also which you should be able to identify for this CompTIA Tech Plus practice, for CompTIA Tech Plus exam, which offers various configurations for data redundancy and speed. What is the function of a device driver? Enables communication between hardware and the operating system, stores system data, manages network traffic, controls the display resolution, or protects against malware attacks. So, what is the function of a device driver? Keyword, and what you should know is functionality or what device driver is for there. And here the correct answer is that device driver enables communication between hardware and the operating system. So when you hear device driver, so it enables communication between hardware, like your all hardware which is of your computer, and the operating system. And operating system is like Windows or, for example, Mac OS. So yes guys, this was another practice test for CompTIA Tech Plus. If you found this video useful, leave a like, share this video, and like I mentioned, if you are interested to do these tests for yourself, go to Skilltestpro. There are 3 of these practice tests for each of these CompTIA, Microsoft, Cisco examinations for free, which you can take and which you can do for yourself, or you can take my Udemy course where I also have Tech Plus practice tests where you can practice for yourself and do these tests for yourself, and I will leave for all these links in description. And yes, if you found this useful, leave a like, share this video, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and see you in the next one.